Gentlemen and ladies, thank you for your time. It's time now for the next session, next presentation, which will be delivered by Professor Dr. Leopold Dana. Professor Dr. Leopold Dana is a graduate of École des Hautes Études Commerciales and McGill University, PhD 1994 in Canada. Dr. Dana is a research professor at Montpellier Business School and Mary Carey Fellow at Princeton University. He formerly served at the University of Canterbury and prior to that as a visiting professor of entrepreneurship at INSEAD in SED and Deputy Director of the International Business MBA program at Nanyang Business School in Singapore. He has published 36 books as well as 270 peer-reviewed articles, mainly in the area of economic development, entrepreneurship, and issues of island economies. His work has appeared in a variety of leading journals, including the British Food Journal, Cornell Quarterly, Entrepreneurship and Regional Development, Entrepreneurship, Theory and Practice, International Small Business Journal, Journal of Small Business Management, the Journal of World Business, and Small Business Economics. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Dr. Leopold Dana.
Thank you for the very warm and very kind welcome. Now I know more about me than I thought I knew. My friends, thank you for coming. And to the organizers, a very special thank you for organizing what I think is an amazingly wonderful event and great opportunity to meet people, like-minded people, to brainstorm and to exchange ideas. And so I appreciate this opportunity to be with all of you. I thought today it would be interesting to speak about research. You're all researchers. And when you go to the library, you see that in the quantitative journals, quantitative research is testing hypotheses. It doesn't create new theory, it tests stuff which we think about. But how about advancing theory? How do we come up with new theory? For new theory, it's not large sample sizes and it's not quantitative studies. It's qualitative. And so quantitative is great to test hypotheses, and qualitative is great to contribute to theory. But the problem is that most people write qualitative papers and get them rejected. Because it's really, really, really hard to get a qualitative paper accepted. And so I thought I'd share with you a bit today on how to be a winner. So there are many methodologies and there are many methods. Does anybody here know the difference between a methodology and a method? Sometimes they're used erroneously as synonyms, but they're not the same thing. Methodology is a way of doing research, and the method is a way of getting data. Very important not to confuse those. So I thought I'd go over a few of these, and we can learn as we go. And anytime you have any questions, feel free to ask. We can make it as interactive as you like. So my first question is, what is qualitative research? You can answer, it's research that attempts to contribute to theory building. But that's not enough. What else? Well, qualitative research is a type of scientific research focused on holistic inquiry from the participant's viewpoint, with rich descriptive detail from observing subject in their natural setting. It's not about sending an email and asking you, do you like blue or green, and people say green. Because you can tell me that you like green to make me happy, but if I see that in fact you prefer blue, but you just say green to make me happy, I call that socially desirable responding. And there's literature about that. Because, well, you can say that people lie, or you can say that people are just polite. So I can cook for you my favorite food. If I cook my favorite food, my wife doesn't like it. But she makes pretend to be polite and it's tolerable. But she can't even eat it because she thinks it's terrible. And so social desirable responding is a problem in quantitative research, but in qualitative we go around and find other ways of getting correct answers from people in their own words. It's never a multiple choice or a yes, no, do you prefer red or green? It's more, I like to watch you paint. I notice you use a lot of green and no blue. How come? Tell me about it. Right there, perfect example of qualitative research. What's the problem with it though? It takes time. If I ask you the question, do you like red or do you like blue? Very easy. You tell me red or blue, maybe you lied, but it doesn't matter. It's fast. But if I have to give you colors and watch you paint and then analyze how much paint you use so that I figure out which color you like, it's going to take time. And that's why very few people want to do this, because you want to get a publication fast. But sometimes a self-publication has its merits too. So let's look more. Characteristics of qualitative research? Well, reasons why I like it. Clifford Geertz spent some time in Indonesia, and he used the term thick description. It's not about fast answers. It's about people telling their story. They tell, and they tell, and you listen and you ask more. We also emphasize that qualitative research is deep, and we emphasize the adjective holistic. Let's go back one step. What's methodology? Well, methodology is a plan of action involving a structured set of strategic guidelines to assist researchers in scientific inquiry. And adherence to a methodology results in structured and coherent procedures. Now, you're welcome to take pictures as much as you like, but if you're really interested, I can give you all this from a journal article. Would you like that?
Yes.
Okay, is there a way that I can get an article to all of you?
We can post on our page.
You can put it on the page?
Yeah.
All right, so if you teach me how it goes on the page, I give you the PDF,
Okay.
and this way everybody can have all of this in an article.
Yes.
Because to make this presentation, I sat by the article, and I read the article again and again to make the presentation. So if you have the article, it's easy for you. So you can have both. And so when you have a methodology and you adhere to it, the fact that it's structured is very helpful. So I promise you we're going to look at some of them, because if we look at all of them, we'd be here until next week. And so we're going to look at some of them. And I picked a few that are relevant to management. Because if you're studying mice in the laboratory, you might be interested in different ones. I don't think many people here are studying rats in laboratories. So I try to pick stuff that's interesting for you. One which people try to use, and very often completely wrongly, is the case study. Case study is very useful to learn about, and we will. Another one is the critical incident. It happens less often, but in some organizations it can be very fun. Ethnography. Oh, can we keep the door open, please? Because it brings in some warm air. Yeah, please, if you keep open, it brings some warm air. Thank you. Some of you have written some of my work that I've done with the Eskimo, with the Sami. That's ethnography. When I go and sit in Lesotho for 6 months with the family, That's called ethnography, and we'll look at it. There's also field stimulation, and there's grounded theory, which is very funny, because many people like to say that they use it, but they're not using it. But it's very trendy to say I use it even though you don't. And it's better to say you use it when you use it, or not say you use it when you don't use it. But when you make pretend to say you use it and you don't use it, then often the reviewers get a bit critical. And we'll look also at a few data collection methods. The methods I suggest to look at are the Delphi. Delphi is very respected and very fun to use. Document analysis, something I use often. Focus groups, especially useful when you're in a business context. Interviews, and observation and participant observation. Very interesting to distinguish between observation and participant observation. Observation means I just watch you. But what happens if I watch you? If I watch you and you see me watching you, then you might not do what you do usually. Right? If you're on the bus and there's a guy picking his nose and you look at him, suddenly he doesn't pick his nose as much. Have you all seen that? Okay, well, it's just, we see this everywhere. Participant observation, I just examined a PhD about that. A girl went and spent 12 months in a marketplace in Ghana selling fruit. Not because she wanted to sell fruit. Why did she spend 12 months doing a PhD selling fruit? Because by making pretend that she's there to sell fruit, she can watch the other fruit sellers. If she comes with her camera, the fruit sellers won't behave the same way. But if she sits with them on the ground and she sells fruit, then people tell her, there's a tourist there, you can charge him double. As opposed to when she comes like a tourist and they want to charge her double. So, hi, I'm a tourist. Can you tell me about selling fruit? Oh, you know, I make very little money. Hi, I want to sell fruit. Do you think it's good? Oh, sell fruit. I can show you how to make a lot of money. So the same people will tell you different stories depending on what you promise. So now we know a little bit about qualitative research, about methodologies and about methods. So my question now becomes, how are qualitative methodologies different than positive quantitative methodologies? And that's something that you might want to address sometimes in your methodology section of your paper. Essentially, the two types principally differ in the way they define and approach reality. I can ask you the question, do you prefer red or you prefer blue? Or I can ask you, is red better or is blue better?
Blue better. Red.
Blue better.
But you see, the difference is in the color. Is it better or is it your preference? So that's the trick. So quantitative research attempts to remove the investigator from the investigation. We use large sample sizes and we find causal variables. And it's very good for testing hypotheses. And that's the majority of articles you see in the library, and they get published relatively quickly. Some get cited, some get forgotten, some don't even get read. Now, the objective of inductive qualitative methodology is to develop theory. It's not to test hypotheses, it's to develop theory. And so the researcher begins with what they say in Latin, tabula rasa. No hypotheses. Open-ended questions allowed to record quotations and to describe from the perspective of the participant. So, has anybody heard of a group called the Memons? Right? The Memons. The Memons are a minority in Karachi, but they're very represented in business. How come a small percentage of people have a big percentage of business? And how come self-employment is so high among them, more than everybody else? And how come they don't go to school very much? You have a PhD? They don't. But they have businesses. How does that work? Ideas? Well,
maybe they are much focused on the business only.
Maybe they're what?
They are much focused on the business only.
Absolutely, but why?
Very early age, the kids have been involved in the activities that they are doing.
Yes.
And they learn how to do that.
Yes. And there's a term for that which is called cultural capital.
Yes.
And cultural capital differs depending on which family somebody grows up in. In my family, we ate rice. My wife's family, they ate potatoes. My wife doesn't know how to cook rice nor how to eat rice. And if I stay a long time without rice, then I'm suffering because I need rice. But that's cultural. It's not, I go to school and study, as of tomorrow I'm going to start liking rice. It doesn't work like that. It's not, as of tomorrow I'm going to like being business. It's as a very young age, you watch your uncle, you watch your... And then since you have people in business to watch, but you don't have people in university to watch. So, you want to do a PhD? None of my uncles have one, what should I? And so, much of what people do is directed by those childhood encouragements. Or we can say encouragements, or we could say discouragements. Because if all my uncles are in business, I'm discouraged to become a dentist. Why should I spend all day in somebody's mouth when, oh my friend, can you keep it open, please? And so, open-ended questions allow you to study concepts such as cultural issues, such as social issues, anything that's non-financial capital. You ask people, you could go to university, how come you're selling stuff? And then they tell you in their own words, and then you understand stuff.
Sometimes we may say ethical issues as well.
Pardon?
Ethical issues as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ethical issues, religious issues, political issues. Very, very difficult to discuss politics with people. But if people talk, they'll tell you stuff. And so, I like open-ended questions because you record the quotations and you find it in their words. If I tell people, do you want an apple or a pear or a peach? Well, you're limiting them to those. But if you ask me, what fruit do you want? I don't say apple, I say guava, or I say passion fruit, or I say durian, but that wasn't the choice you gave me. So let somebody tell you in their own words what they want. McDonald's like to ask people, hi, do you like the meat with the cheese or the meat without the cheese? Well, how about if I'm vegetarian? You didn't give me that option. And so what I'm suggesting, ask people to tell you in their own words, and they'll tell you, I don't eat meat. Oh, I didn't know that. And then it opens new stories.